I drift, I'm a drifter, it is something that I do. I never cared much for routine or discipline like you. If you're born adrift, then drifting's what you're gonna do. Some of us, we choose to drift a lifetime through. Or do we choose how that's part of it? Decisions come and go.
Hello, how are we all? Welcome to week 3 of the Global Music Match, and it is I'm so excited about this one. This is really exciting. I am getting to hang out with a gentleman that has been called a ringmaster, a bard, a troubadour, a master of ceremonies. I am going to be hanging out with the captain of the Lost Waves. Hello, Captain.
Greetings, Mr. Lillie, from a far distant place which always seems exotic. You walk amongst the desert and you have 2 fine dogs at your side. It's wonderful to meet you, sir.
And you, sir. Exciting. And we've got the magical Muswell up in the corner here. Hello, Muswell.
Hey, Colin, how you doing? Great to see you.
Very good.
It's great to see you. I can talk. This is Hello. Hello, everyone.
You can speak.
Now, just to give everybody the dynamic, normally Muswell isn't able to communicate his wants and needs when he's performing and around the captain, but because of social distancing, he's managed to find a voice. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Normally, the only way I can communicate is through the accordion.
Wonderful. I'm so happy.
Language, hey?
We're going to have a great conversation, I believe. So I just rattled off some of the amazing things that you've been putting this wonderful, the troubadour, a ringmaster. Yet to become all of these things, you first have to begin a journey. Now, Captain, where was the first brick on the road of this journey, and how did you and Muswell connect to begin a journey together on the same road?
That's a really good question, and the answer to that is I was extraordinarily unwell with glandular fever, and I've had my ins and outs with the music industry, and realized that if I ever had the strength or the capacity to get on a stage again, I would do everything I always wanted to but was told that I couldn't. Therefore, I would mix up metaphor, story, acting, comedy, profundity, drama, madness, eccentricity, and all the things that I'd been doing since being a child. But my whole foray into the music business was I was always told to be one thing. And I always felt like so much more than one thing. Each person has to follow his own journey. I don't believe that everyone should be following my particular path. I'm saying this is my path. You may be a silent man on stage. You might be a man of very few words. You might be a complete introvert. And that's beautiful because you're being exactly who you are. I realized that I'd been straitjacketed pretty much all my life in music. And I realized that I wanted to give a show that I'd want to see. Therefore, I was once described being a musical schizophrenic, which sounds quite insulting, and insulting to I can't even say it this morning, schizophrenics itself. But I think it was a very, very accurate description because my moods undulate. And coming up with the songs, it was all metaphor in terms of story. I believe that songs and words particularly create a narrative within our human experience. But the paradox is that I think the words that we navigate take us to a place of pure awareness, which is not about words at all. I think Indigenous people understand this. They understand the complexity of how the universal harmonies work. Yet we in the Western world, I love words. I love to gargle words. I love lyrics. I love all that. And yet I know that I'm also limited by words. So it's a paradox. And I envisage the whole journey as this theatrical storytelling. I do a lot of improvisation. And Muswell turned out to be the perfect foil because I think the accordion, I do a lot of solo work. Outside of solo work, it's myself and Muswell, because the accordion seems to be the only instrument, particularly, that would be the grand orchestra as one person. So that was the beautiful meeting in terms of music, and we could play things with a real modern edge, but also going back to the old vaudevillian and music hall feel. So I like to take people on that journey of thinking about something, then laughing, and then having joy together, and then immersing myself within the audience itself. Yes, you can't be too reserved when you come to one of my shows, because I'll probably end up sitting on your lap, which Muswell can now be, he'll be able to tell you about how a live show works.
I'm still trying to work out, after a few hundred live shows, I'm still trying to work out how they work. Sean and I had known each other for quite a while. We'd sort of chatted. Well, Sean had chatted and I'd listened. But we'd known each other for a very long time. And then it was one track from a previous album where Sean just suddenly said, could you put a bit of accordion down on this? Yeah, no problem, mate. Yeah, and so we did one afternoon, just one little bit. And what I found, when I'm creating music, there's all these sounds in my head, chords that I like to use that are very much my sort of flavour, my sort of progressions. Guitarists often are a bit confused by what I do, and I'm a bit confused by what they do, because the instrument takes you in a different route. And I suddenly found that Sean was playing the sequence I was expecting to play, and it was this moment of going, oh, I can actually just play what I want to play with the confidence that it will fit. And that was the start for me. It was just, wow, I can just be myself here. I can play what I want.
Great.
I mean, I love improvising. I do a lot of my gigs. You know, the set list is a sheet of paper with nothing on it. It's that moment of, let's go on stage and who knows what's coming out again. And it's wonderful. I do try and get Sean to tell me which songs we're going to do in a gig, and he does. He's really good. He gives me a list of maybe 10 songs. In the gig, we will do one of them. I have learned that list, hey, I might as well leave it in the dressing room because it's irrelevant. Sean's introductions are legendary. You know, most people, it's 5-minute song with maybe 1-minute introduction. We do the 5-minute song. But the introduction, oh boy, 15 minutes sometimes. Yeah. We did. How long was that encore we did once, short, Captain?
A 35-minute encore in Shrewsbury, where the door security got really, really annoyed because the audience wouldn't let us go, and they just carried on singing, which was lovely. Yeah. But I didn't want to sort of upset anyone. It was late Saturday night, but they wouldn't let us go in the loveliest way. It was almost like being kidnapped.
I have to say, I do. Absolutely, with delving into your music, I have really loved the way that you have and you do use words. Now, one of my all-time favourite book series is called The Spell Singer by Alan Dean Foster. And it's about a young man who gets taken away from one world and arrives in another world. And he plays his instrument and he sings and he creates magic. Now, I get this feeling that when you are creating magic, a spell, which then in a way has a message, has something underneath that whole process that before people know it, they've learnt something and something else has come out of that, which I've really absolutely loved delving into. But you know, that love for words, that love for the music began not just when you heard Glandular Fever, it must have began at some other age. So when did that happen, Captain?
That was around 3 years old, I believe, Colin. My father had died. I was in Scotland, born in Scotland, Helensburgh. My father lived, he was a ship caulker out of Port Glasgow, but he died at just 29. My mum, as you can imagine, had a huge breakdown. 3 to 4 years old, I was flitting up and back to Scotland, back to Halifax, where my grandparents were. And they came across from Egypt in the British military. My grandfather was Indian French. My grandmother was Burmese, Portuguese. So they came to England, this little parochial place called Halifax, which anyone that knows Halifax, it's very, very, probably highly racist at the time as well. I mean, I went through so much racist abuse growing up.
Well, believe that.
To go back, 3 to 4 years old, I first remembered being in my grandma's house, being brought to Halifax. And it was just a natural calling in me. I said, get the family sat down, I'm going to sing to them. I had no idea what I was going to sing, but I would start doing impressions of all the family members, and we do entertainment nights. I'd sing into a hairbrush. I've always said that whatever this is that I've tuned into doesn't come from me. I'm just a vessel for it. I think like all art, when you get yourself out of the way, something far greater than you actually starts to manifest. And so it's always been there. But strangely for me, my connection with music comes from a place of real human story and experience. I think even though musicians can influence you in art, it's usually real people's stories. I spent over 10 years working in care work with youngsters in custody and children from behavioural background issues. And I loved the job so much. And music was always that part of my life that I thought, how can I incorporate this same immersive communion with an audience that I had when working with children who were basically unloved? And for me, I'd never preached this because I think love is it's at the solid sort of bowel of everything we do. And without preaching to anyone, you make a connection. So that person who feels ravaged, unloved, unseen, unappreciated, which is exactly what the loss waves are. I am captain of the loss waves. It's I was once being described as I could be the spokesman for the disenfranchised of society, because there's something in the homeless man's story. There's something in the ravaged story. There's something in the recovering addict. There's something in the child who had nothing. And to me, without using the word God in a kind of stigmatized, dogmatized sense, I'd say that you see the transcendent beauty of people who have been through such suffering, and they've almost died to themselves. And in a sense, I think music, whether it's joyous or it's sad, when you truly look at somebody and they truly connect, that is where your words and your music are the stepping stone. And I think music is given to us as a stepping stone to a far greater awareness. Music is just a step on that journey. It's a beautiful step. But those ethereal connections, and I always warm to the lost and the disenfranchised. I'm not sure if that's because I felt ultimately abandoned, lost, and disenfranchised as a child, but it's informed my art and the people I've worked with. I resonate with somebody who speaks the truth, and the truth is your truth. Doesn't matter where it comes from. It could be a children's movie or it could be Shakespeare. But if it's the truth, you don't know why you can express it as the truth, but you do. And for me, that's what music does, and that connection with art and performance is all about. I will lay myself bare to my audience. I don't particularly have any boundaries, which can be difficult. I used to play prisons, and I used to feel much more at home working with people in the prison sector than I did at ordinary gigs, because they'd lost all liberties and they would speak to you in such a way, sometimes very challenging, but I used to love that. You'd do a show in a prison and you'd fly by the seat of your pants and go, it was just so honest, and they could insult you. But I've always treasured honesty. I don't mind somebody telling me where to get off, because that's honest. I don't like the way we all wear these masks and personas within the society we grow up with. We spend the rest of our lives trying to unravel ourselves from these appearances. So the captain was all about, I will do as I do. People can call it madness, they can call it whatever. I actually often look at madness and think the truly mad people are those who think they're sensible. Because I think to pretend you're sane in such a society is really the greatest act of madness in itself. So I'm all for the childlike expression manifesting as adults. And remember, it's the innocence and it's the connection between us that is greatest. More than anything, and I'm referring to earlier about the indigenous people, they understand this far greater than we do, because wisdom is not intellect. We are drowning in intellect. We have lost our connection with nature and true wisdom.
Because I'm a great believer that when we're happy, we hear the melody, and when we're sad, we hear the lyrics, you know? So, for me, I feel there's an essence of what you were saying, Captain, about the depth of what you do, you know, and how you go. Whereas Muswell brings this joyous point out of the melody, which then creates a complete spell. So, Muswell, what is your process?
It's interesting. I mean, I'm very much an instrumentalist. So both of you guys are singers. I mean, I have sung in my time, but I wouldn't claim to be a singer. And the way that everything communicates to me is through the note. I've quite often, not with the Captain, I know what those songs are about, you know, that's fine, but I've done gigs before and recordings with singers, and at the end of it, haven't a clue what the song was about, which is bad. I'll admit I ought to pay more attention, but I have done songs, I've toured songs, and people have come up to me at the end and say, oh, it's really sad what happens to that girl in that song. I said, what girl? I hadn't a clue what it was about. So I'm very much connect to the music, which is probably why I am reacting completely to the melody and to the chord. What I find very intriguing with the way the Captain plays, though, is he doesn't give me chords. He gives me essences of chords. So quite often you could expect from a guitar player to have really clear triadic, here it is, and you get your chord sheet and you know what you're doing. And that's a bit too formulaic for me, and I find hard to do anything interesting with that. There's no space. But what I get from either the bouzouki or the uke is maybe one or two notes that define a centre of tone, but then there'll be another note that's a little uncertain, and that gives me all these little holes and spaces to travel into. So I quite often can take what I'm given, but by using a slightly different bass line, we can take it in a different direction. And then the Captain will bounce off me on that one. And all of a sudden, what started at this point, by these little explorations, you end up creating a whole new journey. And that's what happens live. Every gig is slightly different. That's what makes this so exciting for me. That we know the album, we've learnt that, we could play that if we want, but actually each gig will diversify from that. Yeah. There will be an extra moment here, there won't be that bit this time. Actually, we've done bits where in the middle of a track, we suddenly changed, we've gone from major to minor for no good reason other than we felt like doing it. Yeah,
and I think that's what makes music the best of all the arts, because it's a living art. When we perform, it's the living art. It's no two performances are the same. That brings me to the next question, is that your choice of instruments. You know, Captain, you use a bouzouki that is a Mediterranean instrument. It is like Greek, well known for being a popular traditional Greek instrument. You know, it's used in Irish traditional music and a lot of folk music in the British Isles, and the accordion. But why did you decide on the bouzouki? like, and it's not. That's not me going why. It's just, you know.
I think for me, Colin, because I grew up playing the guitar. I still own 3 very fine guitars, and rediscovering the guitar for certain songs in drop Ds and open G tunings and all sorts of things, which is fabulous. But there's also a limitation with the bouzouki, because I tune it to AD, but it's because you get the heavy drones. There's something, as soon as you hit a chord on it, you're transported to some other place. And there is a medieval, and something I wonder within our own genealogy, as soon as you hit that chord, and of course, I have this deep affinity for the accordion, and I wonder if, I'm not going to get into the past life thing here, because people would often say they could resonate with a place or believe they've lived there, or what is it about that instrument? A certain instrument like the accordion, where you feel as if I'm constantly in that place of chanson, where I'm kind of, oh wow, you know, I do so much solo work, as I say, and sometimes when we can't be working together, it's always like, oh, if the accordion was here, that's where the solo takes off. And there was a song I particularly wrote around reimagining Edith Piaf and I having a story in 1941 called Don't Miss What's Right in Front of You. People think that's a Piaf song, which is very flattering, but it was made by me imagining it, and Muswell's beautiful French accordion, which takes you back to German-occupied France. So when I'm doing it without Muswell, people will get along and they'll enjoy it for different reasons, but when he's there, you just have to close your eyes and you're in a street theatre in France. So I love the guitar. The guitar, of course, is like everything, and the ukulele, maybe overused, but it's how you use it. And that's why I like different alternate tunings. But I think it's the mixture. I was very firm with my idea with the Captain that I wouldn't use electric guitar at first. I used a lot of synths and different techniques, maybe go into electric guitar at some point, but I was quite keen on keeping this space, this almost medieval troubadour feel, the singing bard, met together as well with another with another instrument almost steeped in this nostalgia, and then create this really modern edge that sometimes people may dismiss an act like myself because you could be classed upon first viewing it as novelty. Oh, it's some guy in a top hat with a tailcoat. They don't understand that it's multi-layered.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the things that have always influenced me are multi-layered. So it's like, wow, what do we let Prince? Prince was a classic example of someone who went through all sorts of different variations in his music. So that's my answer in terms of, that was why my instrumentation choice, possibly the same for Murray, because Murray was obviously an accordion player, but different reasons maybe for Murray why he would choose the accordion.
For me, it's actually a very simple answer. I don't want this to sound pretentious, but for either of you, if somebody said, you're going to do something tonight, you're going to do a piece tonight, both of you are going to sing, because that's your voice, that's how you communicate. And the accordion, quite simply, is that for me. It is it doesn't feel like an instrument, it is just literally part of me. So if you ask me to do something musical, it's of course going to be an accordion. I've been playing it since I was 8, and it is just my voice completely. I can get by on the piano, I can get by on a few things, but I am an accordionist, and that is, to me, the way I speak. It's as simple as that.
Because my ultimate Captain of the Lost Waves song is Mr. Many Men. I love the Mr. Many Men. I just love how you have taken something that we grew up with, that defined feelings and emotions in a simplest way, but you've expanded it in such a way that grown-ups don't feel so bad about enjoying the idea that Mr. Men and Little Miss were great, So that brings me, if you could be any Mr. Men, who would it be and why?
Oh,
you can go first, Murray, I believe.
Oh, you complete swine.
He can do the spontaneous combustion reply. Swapping roles.
I'm just thinking through all the ones that I can remember, but I suppose the one that strikes me straight away would be Mr. Happy. We've all of us in our lives had challenges of varying types and various depths, but we've all been in those places where everything feels so dark and so heavy and so difficult to keep going. And you get through them, of course you do, and it's part of what makes us who we are, and it does empower our music as well. But if I had to choose one, I mean, what a great wish to have. That my wish is that I should just be happy, and just that is it. So yeah, maybe I could tickle people, or maybe I could be strong, but actually, maybe let's just be happy.
Well, I don't think you can beat that answer, because I think within the human sort of gene pool, the genome, I think the natural affinity is to be happy, and I think that song. Kind of so many people embrace that song, because I remember a friend calling it the happiest depression, because he said, you remind me that it's okay to be all things. And I said, because we all stumble, and it's what we went back to with words again, Colin, that it's the paradox that on a human level and from sensory perception, we are limited. I think we're boundless creatures having a bounded experience. That's why we admire birds. We want to fly, we want to be free. The freedom is actually within us. We're taught that it's external, and we chase external things. It's actually within us. And happiness, it's only when people talk about enlightenment that they think it's a place to get to. It's actually within you. But this sounds so trite, because the one thing we've all missed is that we think we've got to do it by achieving and be better and be more motivated. And actually, it's when we let go of those things, because it's here. Awareness has no idea of what's good or bad. There is no resistance in pure awareness. There's only resistance in us as people. And we all have it. That's what the pain of being human is. So I think Mr. Happy has to be the ultimate, because what we all want as sentient beings, we want to be happy. And I'll leave you with this. A friend of mine who did all this NLP work, and he was very new age, and he could manifest. And he said, what do you want? At any point, Captain, what would you want? there's only one thing I've ever wanted, which is peace of mind. He said, do you want money? Do you want fame? No, peace of mind. Therefore, if I'm in a prison, I have peace of mind. If I have a #1 record, I have peace of mind. If I'm laying on the streets with my dog as my only friend, I have peace of mind. Essentially, when you're not limited by the ideas that society creates about what status is and how big you are, and we're all living in that world, we're all negotiating that world. A few words can make somebody feel disempowered, a few words can empower you. It's the reach of my own reach is to go beyond that polarity, which is very difficult as a human, but is perfectly feasible as the awareness we truly are. So Mr. Happy, all day long.
And I have to say, I'm going to be honest with you, you guys, the way you take your words and you create your songs, Captain, and the way that Muswell comes along and fills the space that he needs to move through, you definitely create that in a manner which is more human than I think you really know. I think you guys have got an ability to remind us what it means to be human, and how it reminds us what it means to not be afraid of being human, you know. And I thank you for that, because it's bravery that we need in the world. Now, before you go, I would really like you to just tell everybody where they can find you, and I'd love to know your street address, your phone number, because when I come over, I'm coming for a visit and a cup of tea. Okay, excellent. So that's a must, because this Global Music Match is not about just for 6 weeks. This is a lifetime thing for me.
Absolutely.
I am looking forward to the day that I get to shake your hand, give you a hug, and sit there and have a cup of tea with you, you know? So
definitely.
Please share where we can find you in that.
You'll find me on the fringes of a dark lake in the middle of the moors with no internet signal. But I'll have a flashing light with me with a small tent and a dog called Toto that will answer to you. And I look nothing like Judy Garland from a distance.
And the dolphins will be in there. Thanks for the fish.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the world I like to inhabit. But if you want the dry information, captainofthelostwaves.com, facebook.com/Captain of the Lost Waves. We're on Twitter and Instagram, and all those other devices that try and take us away from our natural sense of being, but we realise we have to do it.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to us all hanging out. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.